For the sake of all of us.
How did I first meet Doug? I first met Doug completely unassociated with any theater of any sort. I was a bicycle messenger in Manhattan in the early 80s, and my bike broke down as it would, and I found my way to Bicycle Habitat. And there was a young man there, very tall, thin, blonde-haired man, who was wearing a mullet and suspenders. You know, he was kind of like a really thin Billy Ray Cyrus meets Wilford Brimley, or maybe Spencer Tracy in Inherit the Wind with the suspenders, you know. And he fixed my bike, and it didn't work correctly, and I took issue with that. And he said to me, "Well, what do you find morally objectionable about that?" And I said, "Well, the fact that you said you'd fix my bike and now are charging me for it when you haven't." And he said, "Oh, okay." And he gave me my money back, and then that's all I saw of him until 2 or 3 years later, when I saw something in the trade for the First Amendment. And I had just finished a project. I had nothing else to do. And so I went down there, and I got in, and Doug got in there. I guess he'd been working with CCL as a piano player over there, and he got in, and that's how I became aware of Doug.
One of my first memories with Doug was when I found out that he was a piano player. I was, perhaps I was already in Chicago City Limits at the time, or in the touring company, and I said, "Oh, you should play for Chicago City Limits." And Doug said something like, "Oh, I'm not that good of a pianist." And you know, years later, looking back on it, because he did end up playing shows for Chicago City Limits, and he ended up playing shows for so many different improv troupes around town, it struck me as quintessentially Doug to sort of say, like, well, you know, I'm not a great pianist, but he was a marvelous pianist in that he played, it was enjoyable, and he was always a center of attention when he played. So whether it was at his Christmas caroling events, or whether it was for a show, everything he did was tremendously enjoyable. And he was never somebody to brag about his abilities or be overconfident in who he was. And yet, when I look back upon his life, I think, you know, what a remarkable person. And how even sort of more remarkable that this was done with so little bravado, that it was just, this was something he did. And with most of the things that he did, he liked to do it, and he did it. So bicycling was another area that Doug and my lives intersected. And Doug was a terrific, strong bicyclist, and somebody who knew bicycles extremely well, worked in a bike shop for a stretch of his life. But it was, you'd never hear Doug like saying, I'm faster than this person, or he would just sort of matter-of-factly tell you, "Oh yeah, I went and visited my friend in Poughkeepsie, or a relative in Poughkeepsie," which I know is 90 miles away. And Doug would just sort of jump on his bike and go there.